I would say the first thing that jumps out at me is to ask how and not why,
Mhm.
because why gets reasons and how gets results, right? We ask, how do we do a thing, not why did you do that thing, right? And so I think that's kind of the fundamental difference or departure where NLP kind of goes off down the different track from, traditional psychotherapy and counseling is, like psychologists want to understand, why does the problem exist? How did we get here? Where NLP concerns itself with, how do we solve the problem, right? Like, let's go study the people who have solved the problem, figure out how they did it so that we can help people with the same problem do the same thing.
Mhm.
And so, right from the very beginning, it's the question of how, right? Like, how do we do this thing, or how specifically, And so it's like, I had a problem. Okay, tell me about the problem. Like, how is that a problem for you? Not why is it a problem? How is it a problem for you? And then different things that people say, different clues that they use, like words like can't or won't or don't, those to me indicate, possibility or necessity, right? If they're like, well, I should do this. Oh, really? Okay. Well, what would happen if you didn't? you know?
Mhm.
And so it's just exploring the alternatives, right? And so I think one of the biggest things to understand is, rather than accepting the words as they are, I always examine the premise upon which the statement is based. So based on the way that you're saying, how they see the world, I'm not sure if you're saying that because you're a visual person, or if you're just saying that because we're
Great
talking about
example.
eyes. But yeah, so just you saying, how do they see the world? That tells me that you're probably visually oriented. And as I'm looking at you, right, I can see your eyes going up and to the sides, right?
Yep.
And so people, generally speaking, when we're looking up, it's visual. When we're looking side to side, it's auditory. And when we're looking down and to the side, we're either doing self-talk, right? We're processing, or we're going into our feelings and checking in with our feelings. And so the eye movements are not set in stone, right? It's the individual to whom you're speaking, and how are they organized, and how do they access and process? Because, I'm sure everybody's heard, well, if they look up and to the left, they're lying, right? Which is not necessarily true.
Mhm.
Looking up and to, the right is, yeah, that's visual construct. Up and to the left is visual recall, right? For most people,
Mhm.
unless you're reverse organized, right? Some people are flipped. And so for them, looking up and to the left is visual recall. For someone else, it's visual construct. They're making pictures in their head. And so it's just, you want to calibrate, right? Ask a question that they're going to know the answer to, that they're not going to be inclined to lie about, right? Like, for
Mhm.
example, I'll say, tell me about your first car. And so I don't give any clues as to what kind of information I'm looking for. So I listen to what they tell me about. Are they telling me about how it sounded? Are they telling me about what it looked like? Are they saying how it
Mhm.
felt? Right?
Mhm.
It's like, what is the information that they choose to give me? And because I know that that's a question they're likely to tell me the truth about, watching where their eyes go, I can tell in what order they're accessing the information, right? And that just gives me clues about how they're processing. One of my mentors, David Bayer, calls it the psycho-cybernetic loop. And basically, our results are driven by our behavior. Our behavior, or our actions are controlled by our feelings, right? How we feel in the moment. How we feel is controlled by our thoughts. Our thoughts are based on our beliefs, and our beliefs are basically a decision that we made about something, right? So an event occurs. We decide what the meaning of that event is, and that meaning that we gave that thing becomes a belief. Okay. So an
Mhm.
example of that would be at, say 6 years old. Okay. And this is a client example, right? 6 years old. We're on the playground trying to make friends, and a bully like beats us up, right? And so what we made that mean was, not, that kid's a jerk. That kid has got some difficult things going on at home, and he's just taking it out on me, right? Because he doesn't know how to express himself any other way. But I make it mean that putting myself out there means pain, right? That means I get punished when I put myself out there. And so that what that ultimately becomes is, I'm in my mid 40s and I can't make myself work. I go to the office and I sit down in front of my computer because I've reached a level where my success is sustainable, but I can't force myself to go beyond that. And I don't know why, right? And it's because a 6-year-old kid, you know, on the playground made a decision that putting myself out there equals pain. And so my, you know, 46-year-old brain is still processing putting myself out there equals pain. And that became a program or a belief that we had that we're not even thinking about anymore. It's just running in the back.